Lloyd Vance's Insider Football is back on the Coastal Sports Digital Network and 1029 The Game. Thanks so much for joining us this evening. So much to get to around the National Football League. And we want to remind everyone you can now find my show and all the Coastal Sports Digital Network shows on the Odyssey app. Just search Coastal Sports Digital Network and you will find Lloyd Vance's Insider Football, On Cue, which is my buddy Rich's show, Pete Shepard's show, and you might even see this guy who's helping me out this evening in the co-host seat, Angel Martinez. He has his own show as well on the network, and so glad that everybody can join us. First off, Angel, I got a belated birthday gift, and I was going to ask Kevin, but maybe you'll know. You're around my age. Do you can you see this?
Uh-oh.
Well,
Nope.
because of my background, I
Yeah, your
guess. Look,
background.
there we go.
Oh my God. Oh, that was such a fun game. Oh, that fun game. You could be hours on that. Where'd
You're
you
old
get that?
school, man. He got somehow my buddy Brian. I'll give him a shout out, Brian Colasar. He's a regular listener to this show. He found that online. He knew that I would love it. We used to play it in college. It's funny though because now all the kids have basically Madden that they play on the Xbox and the PS whatever now, and it's AI driven and it's all that. But this thing and Mr. Quarterback, I know you remember Mr. Quarterback. You hit the
Yep.
button,
Uh-huh. They
hours of fun.
they also had the baseball version of it, if you remember that one.
Yes. Yes. And they had the soccer and I think basketball. And, it was a lot of fun. I remember me and my brother for fun, we took it apart. And then you look and you see, oh man, it's just some wires and some bulbs in there. But it was hours of fun. And the thing is, with this game, unlike you probably had this too, the electric football
Yep.
with the players and the magnets, that shook the whole house whenever my brother and I would play it. I can still hear my mother, turn that thing off. The TV won't work and the whole house is shaking. So,
It
so
was.
this clean fun, man. Hey, if you can't be outside, which I don't recommend, Angels down there in Florida. I'm here up in Pennsylvania. It's cold as you know what out there. I mean, it's like 15 to 20 degrees, and around the league there are a lot of snow games, and it's football weather, but you want to be inside. So lots to get to. We're going to talk a lot about week 14, and Angel and I were talking before we came on, and I've been talking to all the friends, all the relatives, and everybody knows my father and all my cousins are Eagles season ticket holders, and everybody was taking their medicine. What a crazy, ugly game. The
Yep.
Philadelphia Eagles lose out in Los Angeles to the Chargers 22-19 in overtime, and plenty of blame to go around. But Angel, I listen to all the shows, the radios, and all that, and I was on yesterday with Rich Quinones on his show. A lot of fans are just they're irate about Jalen Hurts,
Hmm.
and they're even crazy enough to say put in Tanner McKee. What are you thinking in terms of the Eagles quarterback position? Is it time to I think it's a total panic move if they put McKee in. But what are you thinking in terms of Hurts?
No, you can't put them in. That's one thing for sure. Shout out to Jake who's watching over on Instagram. Do appreciate it. No, you have to. There's no way you can bench Hurts. If you do, you are sending the worst message possible by benching him. You can't. Everybody's. Listen, we would all like to have the most perfect games possible. He's having a problem right now reading the line, and I know a lot of people have said. Rich had talked about it earlier on the show as well. Is that when you start becoming average, and now a lot of people have said he's an average quarterback, and you start showing that, you're losing confidence within yourself. Jalen also has a problem too at times where he just can't, and I don't even know what the word to look for. Like there's just times where he doesn't have that enough confidence when he's out on a press conference and just saying, folks, like, listen, it was a bad game. There was a lot of mistakes that I made. We made a lot of mistakes, and both sides of the ball. So it wasn't just on the offense last night. Both sides of the ball ended up happening because the opening drive by the Chargers. I mean, they basically walked through the D line, and then he finally focused in. Jalen Hurts just needs to focus, take a moment, just be by yourself, Woo-saws, whatever it is that you need to do, figure out what you're doing wrong. Watch the game tape, see what you did, watch the receivers that were open and your tight end that was open that you were missing it. He was just looking for, and I know A.J. Brown wants the ball a lot, but there was times where he only looked left for the focus of his run, and then there was only times where he looked right. Like he wasn't scanning the entire field. Now, it's always easier for us, as broadcasters, media members, fans. Of course, we get the whole overview shot because we're looking from the camera angle. But even if he had a camera on his helmet, you could just see if he was looking to his right shoulder, he's just looking to throw to his right. You have to scan everything. As much as people don't like the success of Patrick Mahomes, but Mahomes does just that. Mahomes is so damn good. When he looks to his left, he throws over to his right because he's already scanning the field. Even, you have Drake May, same thing with the Patriots. So you can't bench Jalen as an example of what? Of Nick's screw up. Nick Sirianni holds this square on his shoulders. Nobody else but Nick. Saquon was running the ball well last night, and the Eagles, for some reason, and Nick Sirianni decided to tell Kevin Patullo, nope, we're just going to keep passing the ball. We're going to keep passing. That, to me, it drove me nuts more than anything else because it was the first time all season that we finally saw that Saquon Barkley was actually attacking the left side because they couldn't control him on the left. But they just kept going to the air, and the rest, as is always said, is freaking history, which makes no sense to me.
Yeah, and Angel, it was hell be damned. They decided they were going to throw the football, and I think a lot of it has to do with what you and I and Kevin debate all the time on the show. Is Jalen Hurts top 5? Well, you know what? They need to get over that and work to his strengths. His strengths are the dual threat. Have him get on the edge, mesh point, maybe keep it or run it with Saquon, but throwing the football as many times that he did is a recipe for disaster. I tweeted, I was talking to Byron, one of my loyal uh, texters from out in California, and he gave me the idea to kind of just research in terms of Hertz and his stats. When he throws 25 times or more, and that was the stat I pointed out on BYP with Rich and on his show, you want that sweet spot, 25 or less. So 25 times or more in this season, he's 3-5 in those games. And he's 5-0 when he passes 25 times or less. So they got to see this. They got to say, okay, take a step back, just win the games. The style points and all that do not matter. Look at what the Denver Broncos are doing. They're winning all these close games. And, yeah, a lot. Some of them are like, ooh, kind of hard to watch. And it may be desperation at the end, but they're getting the wins. And last night's game, let's face it, it was there to be had because the Chargers lose Derwin James, their safety in this game. The defense, for the most part, they're playing pretty well. Angel, they're keeping them in the game despite Hurts's. He had 5 turnovers,
Mm-hmm.
4 interceptions, and he had a fumble on the same play one time. The defense kept them in the game. Herbert was he was harassed in this game. He was harassed on 68% of his dropbacks. So there was pressure in his face over and over again. And then they sacked him 7 times in this game. So, they were kind of doing their job getting off the field. But the offense, once again, and I point this to Sirianni and Patullo, 4 for 13, which is 30% on third downs. They could not keep drives going. And that has been a problem all season. So this is their 3rd straight loss, and they have to find an answer. Now, everybody's going to say, okay, well, they have the Raiders coming in, but they can't look past anybody at this point. Should Eagles fans have trepidation with the Raiders coming in? I know they have Brock Bowers, and they also have Max Crosby, but there's not a lot else there. They even may see Kenny Two Gloves at quarterback for the
Yeah.
Raiders this week.
They may, and even with the Raiders, I don't know if there was an experiment that they thought for some reason Pete Carroll would revive this team like the Seattle Seahawks, and here we are, going into week 15 at this point. As we're going into week 14, coming out of it and going into week 15, I don't know what's going to happen with the Raiders and who really wants to take over that spot over there because whoever goes in there, that's a complete rebuild, no matter which way you look at it. And I guess if Pittsburgh decides to part ways with Mike Tomlin, would he be attractive enough to go to the Raiders as an average 500 coach to be able to turn things around over there in Raiderland in Las Vegas. But I just think I thought Vegas, I think it was a desperate move, a desperate hire. You're bringing in Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll, no offense. I mean, when you were done with Seattle, you should have just stayed away. And nothing against him. I mean, you're able to win one. You won one in college. You should have just stayed away. But for whatever odd reason, decided to come back. The Raiders went with him. And I don't know. Maybe Tom Brady knows something that we don't know that he saw and didn't say much. But either way, there's some teams. It's going to be really interesting coming up in the final 3 weeks of the season to see what's going to end up happening.
Yeah, and now the buys are finished. You know, we're going to recap all the games as we do each week, but the final buys are this week. You had Carolina 7-6. They were on the sidelines, and they're moving up in the NFC South. You had the AFC leading New England Patriots 11-2. Then you have the Giants. Their fans are probably happy that they didn't play. Rich is probably somewhere,
Yep.
but happy they didn't lose because they're 2-11 and they didn't have to play. And then you have the Niners, who a lot of people are not talking about. They're 9-4. They're on their bye, and they have a very winnable game this week against Tennessee. So yeah, so it's that time of year, Angel. You know, like a horse race. Down the stretch they come. The contenders are going to have to step forward, and the pretenders are really showing their true identity. And you're starting to wonder, is this Eagles team, are they a pretender? And everybody is wondering, is this 2023 all over again, where they, would they lose 6 of their last 7 games and it get bounced in horrible fashion to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the playoffs? But
Yep.
some things, when I used to write for gcobb.com and I was covering the games for him, and I used to do plus minus after every game. So, when you look at this game, there was some good and there was some, I'll say bad, but horrible. You had the Hurts, as we said, 21 of 40, 240, 4 interceptions, and to get to your point, he does focus on his receiver way too much. You see him; he's almost like a high school quarterback or a college quarterback, where he's watching that receiver where he's going to throw the ball as a break in the huddle. You know what I mean? He's got to look off to his second, his third read, and I think the biggest thing, Angel, is he has to run the football when he has the opportunity. He didn't really run the ball at all. He only had 4 rushes for 8 yards in this game. The line, even though Dickerson was in and out, he was sacked only 1 time in the game. The biggest run, he got a huge first down. I think it's about a 30-yard run in the fourth quarter or overtime. And unfortunately, got called back for holding. So, you know, can they fix this offense? And I think, with this whole Patullo thing, and let's face it, Patullo he's Sirianni's boy. He slid him in that seat. I mean, and
Yep.
it's hell be damned. He will not publicly, undress him and take that title from him. And everyone knows behind the scenes, it's Sirianni calling these plays. And he's doing a bad job because the Eagles, 40 passes, only 25 rushes. And why would they let Roseman get Bigsby and not use him? He had 1 rush for 4 yards. They need to keep Saquon fresh.
They do have to keep him fresh. By the way, the text was from the 267. Lloyd, it's OPB love the reference to the old school Coleco Mr. Quarterback. Saquon finally got it going on a few plays. And do you think we, with return on Lane Johnson, can get back to form without getting hit in the backfield? One is, Lane Johnson, first of all, I listen, love the guy. Thank you for helping us win another Super Bowl. But at this point, too, he's so injury prone and he knows he's going to have problems. After getting off the juice, it became more and more prevalent that he's more injury prone. So, honestly speaking, as a fan and someone obviously who covers the Eagles as well, it's time for Lane Johnson to might think about just retiring and walking away, because him coming back, I mean, he's 1 or 2 plays away from just being done altogether with the NFL. So I don't think that's going to be the case. But to get back to what you were saying with Kevin Patullo, that is all on Nick Sirianni. Like, you had so many people you could have went out and grabbed and interviewed. I don't care if it was from the pro level, from the college level. But for whatever odd reason, you only went with Kevin. And it didn't make any sense to anybody. It was like, okay, we understand winning the Super Bowl, everybody knows. The same way like Detroit. Detroit got picked on, and as well as they've been doing the last 2 years, They got coaches pulled from them. Ben Johnson doing an incredible job with Chicago Bears. New York Jets, not so much. It's going to take a while. But Kevin Patullo was not your guy for the OC. But Nick doesn't want to listen to Jeffrey Lurie. He doesn't want to listen to Howie Roseman. He just feels like he has all the answers. And you can't. Kevin is not your OC guy. And if you're calling the plays and you're saying, no, it's Kevin, I'm just helping him out. That last game, that was all Nick. Every single one of them, because from what was understood was Kevin wanted more of Saquon running the ball because he knows the pass hasn't been working for the last 2 games. But this is all on Nick Sirianni. And if Jeffrey Lurie did not have that conversation with him from LA back to Philly, there needs to be some answers. And I don't want to hear the post-game pressers tomorrow where Nick will come on with the usual nonsense. That was just all on me. I got to do better. Okay, bro, we're way past that. It's time to focus upon, if you really want to get back to that Super Bowl, which we're not at this point, but if you really want to get back there, take a look at that mirror and figure out what you're doing absolutely wrong to destroy this team.
I love it. Angel, preach it to him. Like Nick came in the principal's office and there was Angel waiting for him, saying, "Look, man, enough's enough. You get 5 nights detention. You done empowered your boy. You gave him this opportunity. Let's face it, he was a quality control coach, and you made him the offense coordinator." They dressed down Brian Johnson. Yeah, he didn't do a great job, but he did go to Washington and he helped develop Jaden Daniels. Maybe they should have gave him another opportunity, but he slid his guy in here.
Yeah.
Kellen Moore, we know he did a great job, and now he's suffering with the Saints. But I do agree with you that their success of winning the Super Bowl has clouded their judgment in terms of Sirianni has this glide about himself. He's almost like he thinks he's Bradley Cooper acting on the sidelines. I mean, with the faces and I got to spike my headset and make everybody know that I'm angry and coach the team. Okay, that's what they need, and particularly you have a quarterback who is a Pro Bowl quarterback, MVP of the Super Bowl. And yes, that was his greatest performance, but he needs help in terms of adjustments. And the biggest thing is sight lines. They tried to throw over the middle a little bit more, but they also need to just use some screen passes. We all remember the Andy Reid days. How many times would he just use that slip screen to Deuce or Brian Westbrook, where they would break contain and then they would keep the chains moving? And I think that's the biggest problem with this team, Angel. It's their inability to get first downs and build drives. They're always trying to get greedy. It may be like 4th and 2, and they're throwing a pass down the field 40 yards.
Yep.
Just get the 5 yards. I mean, and if you look at the Patriots and the Rams, I hate to go to these other teams and talk about how great they are, but they are getting the ball out of their hands and they're keeping the chains moving. And that's the name of the game. And that's what the Eagles did last year. I mean, they were physical, they were smart, they were opportunistic, and now they're kind of playing scared, in my opinion. And you just start to wonder, it's like, okay, well, some of these other teams, and we'll talk about the Chiefs in a minute, they've caught up to the Eagles and the Chiefs in terms of they were in the Super Bowl last year. They were darlings of the league. Well, guess what? Everybody wants to kick their butt. And now they are. They're beating their butt. And we'll wrap it up in a minute in terms of looking at the stats on this game. But AJ Brown, he I guess he's happy. He's placated, as you were saying. He got his 100 yards but Angel, he dropped that touchdown. The game is in his hands. He should have caught that ball.
You should have.
Is this an issue with AJ Brown where they're forcing him the ball and Hurts is getting in trouble throwing in double coverage? Because in looking at the stats, Devontae Smith, he had 4 catches for 37 yards. He did have 8 targets, but they were only really throwing the ball to them,
That was
to
it.
AJ.
Yeah. And then you figure Dotson, there was 2 plays where Dotson was wide open in the middle. Nobody around him for 5 yards, which, like you just said, all you need is that 5 yards. If you get 6, great. But your first down now turns into 2nd and 5, 2nd and 4, 3rd down, maybe 3rd and 1. The only thing that I'm really happy about that they didn't run a stupid tush push last night because it was like, okay, everything else is failing. Don't try it. And they didn't do it, which is good. But yeah, the pressure now of AJ saying he wants the ball, and now you're throwing it. And yeah, he was getting double covered. I mean, I don't know what he was thinking with a couple of plays. Like if you're not scanning that field properly, if your vision is only primary focus with horse blinders on, then you got a problem because you got to take those away and fan the field. And it doesn't take that long to fan it. But for some reason, he just thought, well, if I just throw it 20, 30, 40 yards down, AJ's got it. All he's got to do is reach up and grab it. And that's not the case. And even with Devontae Smith, and we all know, I love the kid, but he's the skinniest probably wide receiver that's out there. And it doesn't take much for him to get banged up. And then a couple plays, the same thing. He was at times even triple covered. And then you're looking his direction like, what are you doing? Go right in the middle. Use your tight end. It's just the resources are there. Howie Roseman has worked magic with this team for the last 2 to 3 years. And even this year, as the Eagles are getting banged up, Howie's like, wow, what can I do? Pull out more bags of tricks from his hat to save Jalen Hurts. And it's almost like he's just stuck in this rut where he can't throw more than 20 yards in double coverage. If it's no one there, the week before, AJ was wide open going down the left-hand side. Was beating his man by 6 yards, overthrew it. A couple times last night, same thing, overthrown balls. So something's got to change. Jalen's got to figure, don't bench him because, again, wrong message is sent. Figure out what you're doing wrong. Take a look at that tape. I don't care if it's your day off. You come in or at your house, take a look at it like Joey Burrow does. He looks at film tape all the time from his house. Take a look at what's going on, but the run game has to come back. And I don't know why they stopped it, because it's like the NFL this year decided to tell everybody, nope, we're going to go to the air. Screw running the ball. But Saquon, you went from 2,400 yards last year. You're barely breaking 1,000 at this point, this late in the season. And Nick Sirianni doesn't see anything wrong with that. So I get aggravated with this guy.
Yeah, it's a myriad of things, Angel. You do get exasperated. It's watching this because it's like, oh man, it's Groundhog Day, and it's 3 straight losses for this team. And they need to take that long, hard look in the mirror. In terms of the offense, they 25 rushes, 134, 5.4 yards a carry. That shows they were working well up front, and yes, we all know they have injuries or banged up, but they were doing a nice job in that 52-yard TD run by Saquon. He had 5 first downs as well. Really, that should have been the game plan. After that work, this should have been, okay, now we're going to lean on this. Should be a Saquon game. Ride it out. The Eagles were a 2.5-point road favorite. The game was desperation city at a certain point because at halftime it's 10-6. So, you don't have to throw caution to the wind and throw the ball 40 times. Just stick with the game plan. So we'll see if the Eagles learn from these mistakes. One of the other positives I definitely had to point out, Epps, that you talk about Howie Roseman, they bring Epps back. He played very well at the safety position. I mean, he has some good coverage plays. That had some pass breakups and strong tackling in the game. I thought Cooper DeJean did a nice job in terms of Ladd McConkey. You really didn't hear his name. He shut him down in the slot. The defensive line, as I said, had 7 sacks of Herbert in the game. And then you got to tip your cap to Herbert. I mean, the guy has surgery on his hand, and he's out there just, fighting for every inch. He only passed for 139, 1 TD, 1 interception, but he ran the ball 10 times for 66 yards, long of 15, and he had 4 first down runs. There were a couple times where he got the first down, and I said, Hurts, are you watching? Look how this guy's using his dual threat ability. He doesn't care that everybody's may say, oh, well, he can only run the ball. Well, guess what? No one cares. Get the win.
Right.
So anything else before we wrap up this horrible Eagles game? I know everybody is going to be talking about it for a couple days now, but anything else from Angel Martinez on this game?
Yeah, it's good. Listen, you get beat by a one-arm quarterback. It's ridiculous. And a lot of people said that, oh, no, Justin will be out by the halftime. And he wasn't. He was listen, he was taking his licks. You can see a lot of times he was grimacing, but he knew that they had to win. One way or the other, they had to do it. So do the Eagles deserve everything that's coming their way from all the pundits out there and saying, is this the collapse of this team? They've been talking about it the last 2 weeks. This morning, I'm pretty sure ESPN had a field day with them because it's coming back to Nick has reverted backwards. And when you revert backwards, the spotlight now is clearly on you. And Jeffrey Lurie, who does not like to get involved, like the Dallas Cowboys owner, he only gets involved when he knows, hey, the fans are upset. And if the fans don't show up, that's where I got a problem. So he really needs to have that one-on-one conversation with him, Howie, and Nick in that room. And even bring Jalen in and says, what's really going on here, guys? Where's the disconnect? Bring the running game back. If you want to salvage this O-line that's already beat up and your defense can only be out there for so many minutes. I mean, at this point, if you're a defense, Lloyd, in all truthfulness, how much can you stand in a 60-minute game to be out there for 48 straight minutes? What feels like you just can't. You're not going to win games like that.
Yeah, and you're talking about the old days when you and I were growing up watching, the Buddy Ryan, Rich Kotite Eagles, where the defense was doing their job and the offense wasn't, and there was a disconnect in the locker room, and this will be final with the Eagles. Do you think there's a disconnect in the Eagles locker room, and is it fixable this season, or are they going to have to wait till off season?
No, it's fixable. There is a disconnect, and it is fixable. The problem is it's going to be everyone involved. Everyone has to take a look and just say, hey, you know what? Instead of pointing fingers at one person, we need to collectively get together and really tend to figure out what's going on. And if that means that you have one full day of nothing but tape of everything that's been going on wrong, because it's easy to say, hey, look, we did this right. That's great. You don't need to point that out because, yeah, you did it right. Take just one session, even if it's half day, figure out what you're doing wrong. It is fixable, but as far as to get them a deep run in the playoffs, that's not fixable, not this season.
Wait, it's not the positivity rabbit?
No.
I mean, seriously, Nick. I mean, you're not coaching third grade flag football out here. This is the National Football League. I mean, that's just embarrassing. And it was just a punchline. It was just like, I mean, it's too easy. I mean, Sirianni, seriously. I mean, and all the memes of, what was that? Indecent Proposal, or what was the movie with Glenn Close? The rabbit in the pot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, everybody, Fatal Attraction. So
Fatal Attraction,
everybody's talking about it as a Fatal Attraction moment last night, but the Eagles got to learn from it. But the fun thing here on Lloyd Vance's Insider Football on 102.9 The Game, Coast Sports Digital Network, is we talk about all the teams, not just the Eagles. So a lot of great games in Week 14 around the National Football League. Angel and I are going to take a run and take a look at all of them before we jump to next week. As I said, Panthers, Patriots, Giants, and Niners. Finally, the last buys are over. For all you fantasy football players, now you get your full lineups for the playoffs. And Thursday night, Angel, I know your Dallas Cowboys, who you can't stand. They lose to the Detroit Lions 44-30. In this one, though, it was Jahmyr Gibbs once again. I mean, Gibbs is just playing outstanding, looking like maybe has a good chance for an Offensive Player of the Year award. Had to clinch her 13-yard touchdown with 2:19 on the clock. And the Lions still are trying to get in that NFC wildcard race. But what was your take on this game? And do you think the Lions will get in the playoffs?
The Lions have now a stronger chance to get in with that win because that's a confidence boost win. And that's what the Lions needed after just a couple of weeks of just up and downs and trying to figure out, as everybody always says, or everyone's always trying to figure out their identity. That was the identity that the Lions needed. They needed that victorious win over the Cowboys. And the Cowboys at the time, the hottest team, even though they only had two straight wins, but you're looking at the hottest team in the NFL, which if they would have, Cowboys would have won out or lost more than just losing against the Eagles. But you also have give up Pickens once again, doing what he did best in Pittsburgh, where you just had the ball in your hands. All you had to do is take an extra 2 steps, extend your arms, and the ball was there. And Dallas could have won the game. But no, Pickens, in typical Pickens fashion, a couple of plays where he decided, I'm not into this anymore. I don't care if we win or lose. I'm just worried about me. So the Lions definitely needed. Jahmyr Gibbs did have a huge, huge game. Defense, even though they're banged up once again, Detroit's probably the biggest banged up team next to KC, where they lost a lot of guys early in the season. Right, but to pull off the win they did with the Cowboys, that was great, which should have been the gift for the Eagles. But the Eagles find a way to lose it, and now Dallas has the opportunity to still win the division at 6-1.
Yeah, and now the Eagles, they need 3 wins. So 2 wins and a Dallas loss, 3 Dallas losses. They need some combination of that at this time, and they can't have that collapse because I mean people going nuts here in the Philadelphia area, and the Cowboys. You're right, that was their chance to kind of step forward. Everybody said, "Oh, they had a big Thanksgiving win," but they just couldn't get it done. And the Detroit Lions, Goff, he just goes about his business, and mainly it's handing the ball off to Jameer Gibbs and Montgomery, and then Amon-Ra St. Brown gutted out the game in terms of that ankle injury. No one thought he could play. So
Hmm.
good win for them. If the playoffs started today, we always like to look at that. The Detroit Lions actually would not be in the dance. The Rams are one. Green Bay 9-3-2. You have the Eagles. Surprisingly, they're still number three, and if as long as they win that division, they'll be number three. But that would set up an interesting game, the Big Dom Bowl against the Niners. So will be interested if that comes to fruition. That'll be really fun. That'll be back at the link. And you remember one of the last times they played, Dre Greenlaw got into it with Big Dom, and there's all kinds of fighting.
Yep.
Number 4 is Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Somebody's got to win that awful NFC South. 5 is Seattle, who's looking like they're a team who really could compete for a good postseason run. And then the Bears, we'll get to them in a minute, but they fell. They went from number 1 all the way down to number 7 after losing
That
to
was
Green Bay.
crazy.
So
Yep.
there is your NFC playoff picture here on Lloyd Vance Insider Football. And yes, so good win for the Lions. But Angel, I just think with the Lions, Dan Campbell's over aggressiveness is just going to bite them in the long run. I still point to that Eagles game where they were 0-5 on fourth down.
Hmm.
They could have won that game, and he just said, "Nope, we're going for it," and it did not work.
Yep. You could have. And there's only so many times you could. The 4th and 1, 4th and 5, 4 and 3. It's only so much you're going to be able to pull off to be able to get that first down. And if it hasn't worked for you throughout the season, and again, we're not head coaches looking at it from, I guess, the armchair quarterback perspective, if it's not working for you, stop relying on it. Stop going for it. Nick Sirianni is another ding dong that you can barely get by 3rd down. So it's one of those things that you have to take a look and say, all right, if 4th and 1, 4th and 2 are not working, punt. Because at least you have the opportunity of getting the ball back. So Dan Campbell, listen, he's done by far more than any other coach could do for the Detroit Lions. But stop setting your guys up for failure and yourself. So Detroit they could still win throughout and they can still get in their playoffs if things work in their favor. But that was definitely a good win off that Cowboys team. And my in-laws, they're huge Cowboys fans. So of course I got the business as well, but I expected
Yeah,
it.
there are a lot of Cowboys fans that come out of woodwork, but guess what, Angel? They'll be hiding real soon because unless they're playing in the Jerry world, they have trouble on the road. And I think in terms of looking at the end of the season schedule, Dallas, they have so they have Minnesota, and the Chargers, they're both at Jerry World, but then they're at Washington, at the Giants. And typical Cowboys faction, watch this happen. They win the 2 games, they get all excited, and then they go on the road in the cold and they lose a game they shouldn't because, you know, George Pickens, he gets a hamstring and he doesn't want to play,
Yep.
or something like that. So we'll see with the Dallas Cowboys, but obviously a lot of people in the Philadelphia area looking forward to a playoffs that may not have the Chiefs, it may not have the Cowboys, and they're like, hooray, hooray. So we'll wait and see how this all shakes out. We're on Lloyd Vance's Insider Football on 1029 The Game, Coast Sports Digital Network. I'm here with Angel Martinez this evening. Uh, this game and the big story today that came out, and I want to get your take on this. The Jacksonville Jaguars beat the Colts 36-19, but in this game, bad injury, and it looks like the season for the Colts is on life support. Daniel Jones goes out with Achilles injury, and they bring Riley Leonard in, and this is not Notre Dame. They're not playing Army. You knew that game was over, So the Jaguars, to their credit, they dismantled them 36-19, and you're starting to see them ascend. Uh, but I wanted to get your take on the Colts today. Signed 44-year-old Philip Rivers. and immediately they're all over NFL landscape. You're seeing all these former quarterbacks. You know, I could still do it. Particularly Cam Newton. He said I'm only 36. Give me a chance. And it's crazy because Philip Rivers is 44, and his oldest is older than Riley Leonard.
Yeah.
So he has a 20-something-year-old. So what do you think of his signing? I still think maybe they bring Richardson back from that broken orbital and try to give him an opportunity, but Colts are in trouble.
They're in trouble. And Richardson, I feel bad for him too because the same thing, his confidence has been shot for like the last two seasons. And it's mostly because the Colts can't figure out exactly what they want to do. Philip Rivers, I don't know what possessed him to pick up the phone and say, "Put me back in, coach." You are now like the Uncle Rico of Napoleon Dynamite. Like
I
I can
love
throw
it.
it at a mountain. I can do it. So I don't understand why would you want to come back? Like I can understand if you pick up the phone for CBS, ESPN, Amazon Prime. Hey, I would love to come in as a commentator, analyst, whatever. You pick up the phone to say that you still have game in you. Maybe it's because Joe Flacco's still in there. Like, what do you have to prove? You're not bouncing back the Colts from what started in the very beginning of the season when they went on an amazing run. Daniel Jones, resurrects his career with Indy, but you're coming in at 44. One hit, and you could just be done, which makes no sense. And then Rich made a great point today too, which I didn't even know that if Philip Rivers takes a field and one pass, now he has to wait another 5 years to be
Correct.
eligible for the Hall of Fame. So why would you want to do that? You're so close on getting in. Why would you want to come back for what? And then if the Colts don't make it, what are you going to do? It's like, well, unless I tried, I couldn't make it. And what shape? Honestly, like, what have you done to work out? Everybody knows these younger guys in the NFL. I mean, they got tons of speed, so
Yeah.
they're going to come after you. You're not. I'm sorry, and I can't believe I'm even going to bring up Tom Brady in this conversation because I'm not a Tom Brady fan. But Tom Brady so far is the only quarterback that showed that he could play in great caliber status to the age of 45.
Yeah, and
So,
he was greatly protected. I mean, you're down there in Tampa. That season they had worse. They had Jensen, beating everybody up to center position. They made sure Tom was clean. But
yeah,
when he got hit, you always wonder. You're holding your breath. You're like, oh man, at his age, is he going to be able to get up from this? But as you were saying, only one Tom Brady. I mean, and there's only one George Foreman, a guy at that age that could win the heavyweight championship of the world. It just doesn't happen. And Father Time is unbeaten.
yeah,
We'll see how it turns out. But the funny thing is, a lot of people kept sending me memes where, it's Philip Rivers saying, bleep those kids. He has 17 kids and maybe he don't want to be at home changing diapers or giving the kids rides to school or something. So he's going to get his chance, but it's going to be very hard for him to relate to those young guys in the locker room. It's just a different NFL at this point. And I did it makes you question, like, yeah, why would he want to come back for this? But you know fighters and athletes and everything, they think they got one more good one in them. So
yep,
he's going to get his chance. Uh, Crazy season around the NFL, and that team started so well, Angel. It's almost reminding me of, and Rich asked me on his show the other day, and I was racking my mind. I was like, he's like, Lloyd, has there ever been a team that started like 8-2 or whatever, and they crashed and didn't make the playoffs? And I was like, I couldn't really think of it. I remember a couple Steelers teams that were leaking oil. They were 11-0, and then they went to the playoffs, but they lost in the playoffs. The only one I really could really think of, and I was sitting around, was, do you remember Rich Kotite in the Philadelphia Eagles? They started, I think, like 7-0,
hmm
and then he demanded a new contract, and Norman Braven said, "Go pound sand."
yep.
And I think they went from 7-0 to 7-9. One of the awful seasons in Philadelphia history. So it can turn very quickly. I always tell my one friend, I'm helping him kind of with his survivor pool. It's a week to week league.
It is.
And you look at the Rams, and we'll talk about their game in a minute. They were the number one, but then they went to Carolina, laid an egg, and then this week they got a good quality win, and everybody's like, all right, put them back at the top. But that's not the case. The injuries and um, a lot of things just come into play in terms of these teams winning week to week, and we're seeing bad teams. To their credit, it was shocking to me. And let's talk about this game. You see the Saints 3-10. What the hell they got to play for? They go down to rainy Tampa and they beat the Bucks 24-20 in this game. I'm sure you had your eye on it.
Yeah.
Tyler Shuck, a rookie quarterback, and I maligned him, picked on him. I think I may have given him my lackey one time. He had two rushing touchdowns in this game, and he showed a lot of moxie. They end the Saints 2 game skid, and they win even though Kamara wasn't in this game. So should the alarm sound with Tampa? I mean, are they going to be able to win this sorry division?
I don't think so. At the rate they're going right now, and they're playing on Thursday night, so it's going to be a short week for them as well. I mean, Baker Mayfield could only work so much magic, and he's. I mean, I know Drake May. Don't get me wrong; he's doing great for the Patriots and the MVP talk. Baker Mayfield should still be in there in that conversation as well because he has tried to carry this team on his back with Mike Evans being injured, with some of the O-line the same way with being bagged up. Defense is finally starting to get their guys back, but there's only so much that Baker Mayfield could end up doing. A lot of it, again, goes back to your head coach. No offense, Todd Bowles, really nice guy. Really nice.
Yeah.
You can't say anything negative about him, but when it comes to head coaching, it's almost like you look at the playbook, and here you look at it and said, okay, let's see. Wait, do I get my glasses on? Play one. When that fails, just go to play three. And that's where Todd Bowles is starting to kind of show his face, where Bruce Arians at least learned week to week, like what was failing for the Bucks and what made it better. Obviously, Tom Brady coming here and then winning the Super Bowl made it a whole lot better for Bruce Arians. But Todd Bowles doesn't do that. There's no adjustment with Todd Bowles. It's like the first half was like, yeah, we're good. All right, we have our foot on the pedal, right? In the second half, let's keep that foot on there. And then for whatever reason, it fails on him. You should have taken care of New Orleans. I mean, come on. That's who's worse than New Orleans right now? Maybe other than the Browns, because they can't figure out what to do with their starting quarterback. But there was no adjustment. There was nothing going on. And you have a battered and bruised team, and you do the same thing week in and week out. And in the rain, it should have made a difference. But again, the same thing. The air attack wasn't there, so you should have run the ball some more. No different
Yeah,
than
and
what
they
New
have
Orleans
three
did.
good running backs. You got Tucker, you got Bucky Irvin,
Yep.
and Rashad White. I mean, they got they have weapons, even though they have some injuries. And what about Emeka Buka? I mean, he started out on House on Fire, looked like him and Ted McMillan were going to fight it out for that Offense Player of the Year, Rookie of the Year. But he had some drops in this game,
Yeah.
and you're starting to wonder, okay, he's looking like a rookie. Is there a problem there with him? And I hear they may get back Mike Evans. He's kind of come back from that collarbone injury.
He's trying to come back from his collarbone injury. I mean, it's just the Bucks. I feel bad because every year Evans, God bless those guys because they really try to nurse their injuries and try to do better for the following season. But every year the Bucks start off, it just seems like from week 1 up until week 10, someone's getting battered and bruised. Mike Evans the same way. I mean, he got the extension, and you got to take a look at it. Like, are you going to be healthy enough to help this team if he's able to come back at this point by this late in the season and to be able to make a playoff push, a long run in the NFC? And it may not work. I mean, you have Bucky Irvin also, who was hurt, comes back in this game, and try to prove himself as well. There's just, I don't know what's going to happen with Tampa, other than they're probably looking at this point come next season. And as Glacier family, as nice as they are, if Tampa fails to win a division, and even if they do win a division, you have to take a look at Todd Bowles and this entire team and wonder, do you really have what's right for this team going forward? I just think, as nice as, again, Todd Bowles is, he's just your average head coach, and unfortunately will not get you past where you guys need to be to try to win that third elusive NFL title.
Yeah, you have Jason Light there at the GM position. You talk about the great Glazer family that runs it. They're used to winning.
Yeah.
They own Man United, and so they put a lot of resources in this team. And unfortunately, I know I was on Richard's show, and he said, "Is this it for Todd Bowles?" If they fail the way it's looking like, and they can't win this division down the stretch, I think, yeah, it may be time to make a change. We know in the NFL there's about 7 new coaches every season, and he was on a hot seat coming in. So I expect change there. I expect change with the Arizona Cardinals, where Jonathan Gannon has not gotten it done. Uh, we know Tennessee and the Giants already are looking for a new coach. The Raiders, I think Pete Carroll is 74 years of age, as you said. Is he still interested in coaching? I mean, it's a total rebuild situation there. Maybe they start anew, and we'll start hitting some of these games quick because yeah, time's going fast. That's how you know I have a good show.
Yep.
The This game I wanted to get your take on, and this coach has got to be on the hot seat, Angel. Stefanski with the Cleveland Browns. I mean, what the hell are you doing? Number one, this was everybody's suicide pool pick because you got Tennessee coming up to Cleveland. It's snowing outside. It's cold and everything. And you think, all right, they're a 2-win, they're a 1-win team. They're going to roll over. But to the Titans' credit, particularly Tony Pollard, the old Dallas Cowboy, career best 161 in this game. He had 2 touchdowns, including a very long one. But the story of the game, obviously, is Shador Sanders. Nate, who comes on the show. My son is in college. All the young guys love Shador. I mean, Shador is on Instagram, everything, and he's living up to the hype. I got it. Hey, I'm giving him his props. He threw for 3 touchdowns, I think 364 yards in this game. He did have an interception. He was leading this team. And there are a couple key moments in this game I wanted to ask you about. They got a score late to cut it. They could have kicked the extra point and they went for two. He bobbled the snap. Okay, so they're down 8. So they probably should have not gone for two there. And then to exasperate it, they come right down. Shador, the defense did their job, and Shador led them again, and they could have tied the game with a 2-point conversion. Well, they take him off the field. And I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And then they run a play. It was so funny because there's memes. I love the memes about they show from the water boy and it's Henry Winkler. He's like, oh, you line up here. No, okay, wait, do this, do that. And that's how the play looked. They snap it to Quinshon Junkins. Why not run him up the middle? Then he tries like a reverse pass or something. And you're like, what are you doing with the game on the line with that dumb play?
Yeah. No, I was surprised too. Like, listen, he has been. I will give it to Shador as well. Shador has gotten a lot of grief, a lot. Now, one thing to kind of revert back a couple weeks ago, someone on their show said that Shador Sanders was the most popular person basically on the planet. That he was more popular than the president. He was more popular than the NFL. Come on, you guys, slow it down a little bit. Shador is trying to do the best of what's been handed to him. His dad set him up for success, and Shador's trying to do it. But again, you have Cleveland and Stefanski telling Shador, you're a guy, just not now. But tomorrow, you're going to be better. Right now, though, I'm thinking like maybe it's not good enough for you. And they proved that in the game as well. How do you take this young man who's driving you down the field with another opportunity, and then you tell Shador, yeah, it's not your time. Go on the sideline. It doesn't make any sense. It really doesn't. But listen, my hat's off to him because he is trying to do the best he can. Stefanski really, I mean, you have overstayed your welcome in Cleveland. And then they were talking about on the flip side, you have Shador Sanders, which is probably the best thing for you come into next season. No, they're sticking with Deshaun Watson. They already said they're going to bring him back. So this poor kid is like, so what am I here for? Am I just here because of my name? Am I here because of my dad? Or because I'm just that placard card that you guys fill in during the Oscars when excuse me, Kevin's going to the bathroom. You over here, placard, sit down. We need you in the seats. So I don't understand it. Make up your mind, Cleveland, what you plan on doing. And Shador, again, my hat's off to him because he is really, really trying to hold it together as best as he can. And he will shine at one point. It may not be with Cleveland, and who knows if somebody doesn't come trading up for him because he's in his rookie contract. So if you're going to make a move for him, you might as well make a move now before he gets really good, and then you really got to pay the price.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is, Angel, when you look at Cleveland, Stefanski was like, all right, we're going to name him as starter the rest of the season. Oh, that was so hard to do. I mean, seriously, but he's much like Sirianni's cutting off his nose to spite his face in
Yeah.
terms of this Shador situation. It's obvious that the owner, Jim Haslam, wanted Shador, and Barry, the GM. Everybody's trying to figure out if he was in on this too. And Stefanski or Barry, one of them or both may be leaving at the end of this season, and Shador is going to be them. They made that mistake with that Watson contract, what 264 million guaranteed
Yep.
fully. So he's going to be back. They're bringing him back. I thought they were going to cut him. Kind of much as surprised as you are. With those two Achilles injuries, he may never play again. So, but they're going to bring him back. Just not to because they need to just say, okay, we were wrong. How hard is that to do? You know what I mean? But they're not going to do it. And it's Cleveland always being Cleveland. I hate to pick on them. They've never been to a Super Bowl, but just when you think they're going to turn some things around, they lose a game like this to the Titans. Hats off to the Titans. They continue to play well. Cam Ward, uh, looking solid. He's making some good decisions. I think Tennessee, they will get a new coach in there, an offensive minded coach that will be able to work with him, and we'll see how Ward turns out. But good win for them. We're here on Lloyd Vance Insider Football on 1029 The Game, Coastal Sports Digital Network. I'm here with Angel Martinez. We are remixing week 14 before we start previewing week 15. The weeks are going too quick, Angel. I mean, before you know it, we're going to be watching the Super Bowl, and then I'm like, oh, there's nothing to watch.
Yep.
My younger son Braden, he loves the NBA, and I may be showing that I'm old school and everything. I love the NBA when Jordan, Barkley, and all those Dream Team guys are out there. Patrick Ewing. I mean, every game was fun, but it's just tough for me to watch. A lot. You don't know who a lot of these young guys are in the NBA because they're one and done in college. I know you watch college ball. I mean, are you? What do you think in terms of the popular? And that's always a debate of the big four sports. We know the NFL is king,
Yep.
but who's number two? Is it MLB? Is it the NBA? I know there's a lot of hockey people down there in Florida, with the Lightning and the Panthers playing so well. And here in Philly, where I am, the Flyers are finally getting on track. But what is number two, you think, in terms of sports?
College football is definitely number two
Oh,
when it
okay.
comes to
There
the
you go.
NFL. You have to because you have to take a look at it. As long, I just hope the NIL really doesn't change the landscape because a lot of people prefer to watch college because obviously these kids not only are they fighting for a roster spot, but they also want to make it to the pros. But these teams, you have some teams that don't even tend to belong in college, and then they turn things around where you get coaches that come out of nowhere and turn teams around to the point where you start looking other places. You got Alex Golish, obviously, who did well for USF, was supposed to go to Arkansas. Auburn at 1 o'clock in the morning gives him a call. 6 minutes later, he's off to Auburn. He
Man.
told USF, hey, thanks for playing and everything else. But the one thing that kind of burned me a little bit with him was that as soon as Auburn made him the deal, it was basically like, oh, Twitter handle, let me change it. Ta-da. Everybody woke up like, Auburn? What's going on here? So college football has done a really, really good job. And you got to think about it. Even though fans love to be somewhat in the cold, college fans, because they're younger, they don't care. Shirts are off, shorts, t-shirts, tank tops, you name it. They're just enjoying it because the camaraderie in a college game is a lot better with the rival school. With the NFL, because of all the changes, so many flags, so many things that happen. Next year they want this, the other year take it away. College football to me is actually 2 and 3. College football, college basketball, even
Okay.
before you get to the NBA. So if
Wow.
you had to rank the top three, NFL, college football, and college basketball, and Major League Baseball is kind of starting to come around, but we all know the CBA is coming back from baseball. And if baseball was really smart, Major League Baseball needs to start addressing it now because if you have another walkout, you thought back in the day when fans took them like 3 to 4 years to come back, you will lose the entire fan base. You'll have to. Jerry from Rhode Island says, listen to you
Nice.
guys and watching the Bruins, good football and hockey. Well, how are the
Hey,
Bruins doing?
I I I know the Flyers are doing well. I talked to my buddy Byron. He's my hockey guy. He tells me his son plays. and he always tells me who's doing what. But yeah, I think the Bruins are always still going to be in the mix, and
Yeah.
it's interesting because the Bruins, and the Flyers didn't like each other, and then I know my one buddy out in Pittsburgh, he's a Penguins guy, and he that's a huge rivalry. So they're still all in the mix, and we'll see how those seasons wind up. But we know the NFL's king, and in terms of college football, though, couple things. Uh, Mendoza, is he going to win the Heisman? I mean, that was I don't watch a lot of games, but Mendoza played extremely well, leading Indiana over Ohio State in the Big Ten championship. And then the other part two question is Notre Dame. They did not get into playoff, Angel, and they took their ball and they went home. They're not going to even go to a bowl game. What do you think about those two topics from college football?
Mendoza could possibly walk away with the Heisman for sure. The way he's played this year, I mean, you're talking about Will, who ended up playing for Ohio, ended up taking the national title game, got drafted by Pittsburgh, was supposed to be their starter, other than Duck Dodgers in the 21st century over there, but ends up getting hurt, and unfortunately, he's done for the season. He'll come back next year, but for what he's done for Ohio, he should end up winning the Heisman. I mean, I think it'll be close to the other two candidates that they have in there. The second part with Notre Dame was riding that high when they thought, haha, Miami, guess what? We're going to take your spot and no one's going to end up changing that. And then the committee all of a sudden does a 360 over the weekend after they were down there in Georgia and they had a coming to Jesus party. No offense, Notre Dame, but ended up having it. And they were like, you know what? Maybe Miami is the better team. Maybe Miami, that win against them, it might have changed their mind a little bit. So then Notre Dame was still eligible for a bowl game, but Notre Dame said, no, we're going to go home because we don't want any other bowl game. We want to be in the college football playoff ranks.
Yeah.
That's what we deserve to be. And so you decide to take that away from your seniors that are on the team that could have went out and won. I don't care if it's the Rice Bowl, Pop Tarts Bowl, whichever bowl. You could have went out there and won a bowl game for your seniors, for the kids who worked their butts off for the season for you. But no, because you weren't put in to the CFB, all of a sudden now you're like, oh, no, forget it. We're just going to go
Yeah.
home. We're going to focus on what we need to do, and that's it. So it's a
Yeah,
shame.
and there's just no loyalty. A
No.
lot of these kids, they're transferring now in the portal and all that. They're leaving as soon as the season's over. So we'll see how it goes with college football. I do think that Mendoza is going to win the Heisman Trophy, and then you start talking about, all right, kid, where are you going to land? Good luck.
Yeah.
It probably may be the Raiders, the Saints, the Jets. They all need a quarterback,
God bless
So,
you. Go to the
and
Jets.
I think you throw Arizona in the mix there, Angel, because I think that Kyler Murray, Rich and I talk about this a lot. I don't think Kyler Murray plays ever again for the Cardinals. And let's hit a couple. All these games would kind of give one sentence on each of these games, and then we'll get to everybody's favorite moment for Lloyd Vance's Insider Football, our game ball winners and our lackey. So start thinking about that. Uh, this game, Miami Dolphins over the Jets. I think the big story was Tyrod Taylor gets hurt. The Dolphins win in the cold.
Yeah, surprisingly enough, and once again, Mike McDaniels saves himself another job, turns
Yeah,
Miami Dolphins around. So yeah, it's surprising
that's a
Miami won.
that's a good one. And Chris Greer's going to GM there. I think McDaniel does survive. The Pittsburgh Steelers. This is a game we had our eye on here where I live because I live pretty close to Maryland, and Kevin's down in Maryland. The Steelers beat the Baltimore Ravens in Baltimore, and Aaron Rodgers had his best game of the season, 284 yards passing. He was not sacked. He played extremely well. Lamar Jackson did not. Is Jackson not right? And was that a touchdown with Isaiah Likely from this game?
That was a touchdown. I think they made the wrong call, so that was a touchdown. And I think Lamar, honestly, Baltimore might be looking in the offseason. Is it time to ship him out and give him a new landscape?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because 3-5 in the playoffs, they may not make it because Derrick Henry is looking a little long in the tooth, and that defense is not playing that well. Hamilton's playing well, but the rest of the guys are not. This game here, Seattle Seahawks were just dominant over the Atlanta Falcons, who are going to play Thursday night, as Angel said, against the Bucks. But Seattle, it was 6-6 at the halftime. Then it exploded for 31 points in the second half. Rashid Shaheed, 100-yard kickoff turned this game. The Seahawks are looking extremely dangerous.
That they are. And you got to figure, did Minnesota do the right thing by keeping, we understand they got JJ McCarthy, but you got to think about, was it then a fluke for Minnesota last year and Sam Darnold resurrecting his career out there and then going to Seattle and proving, yeah, you know what? Minnesota's success last year could have been based off my gameplay. So Seattle, I think, takes this one away, unfortunately, from the Bucks. The Bucks just are going to continue to fail and not get out of their own way.
Yeah, and the Falcons, lost season. You talk about coaches on the hot seat. I think Raheem Morris is going to be on the hot seat. I just, Zach Robinson, the offense coordinator there, is not doing him any favors. And now you got Kirk Cousins out there finishing his career. So getting ugly quick for the Falcons. So that was a bad loss for them, and it's not trending right direction. Uh, Speaking of teams trending with the needle up, and you just talked about the Minnesota Vikings over the Washington Commanders, 31 to nothing shutout win. And now the two stories of this game, obviously, with the two quarterbacks, JJ McCarthy finally played well, and he behaved himself in the locker room. He just accepted the game ball, didn't act a fool and go to his alter ego number 9. But wanted to talk to you about the Washington Commanders. They put Jane Daniels out there. This team, what are they, 3-win team? And they
Mhm.
put him out there, and he's getting slammed down. You see, he hurts that elbow again, and he says, I can go back in. And no, Dan Quinn, don't play him out there. They can get him hurt and not, they could ruin his career. So, talk a little bit about Jaden Daniels and what's next for the Commanders in terms of his injury.
He is unfortunately, he is a fragile quarterback. I mean, he tries to do
Yes.
too much, and I understand that. But when you're not sliding and you're going head first, you're doing things. You want to be the running back, the wide out, wide receiver. You want to be everything in one. You're going to end up paying the price. Dan Quinn put him out there in dangerous territory. You're not coming back to do anything this season. Get your quarterback that you guys were dying to get and drafted. Make him healthy, make this team better because you went out during the offseason and improved your roster. Now, unfortunately, we're banged up, but this then also takes you back to, is Dan Quinn coming back to his old days that we've seen him as a head coach where you're making silly decisions and that's why you weren't being picked up by anybody. So I think, to me, even though, Rich had mentioned earlier that he gets a pass because of the injuries, I still think, to me, Dan Quinn is also on a hot seat for, you had the season you had last year, ran almost a table all the way up to the Super Bowl until you didn't. But then this year, Dan Quinn reverts to back old Dan Quinn.
Yeah, and it's interesting because Adam Peters there is general manager, and they're going to look at the whole operation. And you think they would have equity from last season, but you never know. Sometimes the NFL, it's week to week and it's
Mhm.
season to season. The owner, they have a new ownership group there, and Joshua Harris, who's a basketball guy, sometimes they're reactionary, those basketball minded guys, and maybe he'll say, we need to go in another direction. So we'll see there. But I think rightfully so, they're going to put Marcus Mariota out there the rest of the season. They should not play Jaden Daniels because he's just too valuable. And as you said, in the off season, he's got to get on some kind of lifting program, put some meat on his bones. He's way too skinny out there.
Yes.
Him and Bryce Young, who's playing for the Panthers. They're too small, and you can't take those hits in the National Football League. Look at Kyler Murray; he's often injured as smallest quarterback. So we're here remixing Week 14 on Lloyd Vance Insider Football 1029, the game, Coast Sports Digital Network. Uh, Make sure you check us out on the Odyssey app. Just put in Coast Sports Digital Network, and you can check out all the shows on there. My show, Rich Quinones' show, Angel's show, Pete Shepard. There's a lot of good content from the Coast Sports Digital Network. Check it all out. All right, this game, and this was a feature game. I really enjoyed this one. Angel was in the late window, and it was the Green Bay Packers, the NFL's oldest rivalry. They pull it out 28-21. You really started to see Jordan Love come of age. I mean, he was sliding around the pocket, getting the ball out of his hands, making big plays. they, unlike the Eagles, they were committed to the run. You saw Jacobs run the football and the backup there, and just set the tone for the team. And then the Bears, you know, they play pretty well. Caleb Williams,
Mhm.
who Kevin and I always are like, Caleb Williams, but he's starting to come along. He did have the bad interception at the end, and Nixon made a nice play to end that game out. But is Green Bay for real, and where do the Bears go from here?
I think Green Bay is for real. Jordan Love is starting to finally come around to himself, and it took him a little while. I know this season has been some same things, some highs and lows for him, but they proved they hung in there with a Chicago team, which you cannot take lightly because as your head coach has been screaming every single week, this is not the same old Bears, and it hasn't been. 5 weeks in a row, 5 games in a row, you've been able to come back and win it at the end with seconds left in a game. And they almost tried to do the same thing with Caleb Williams, who I think, in my opinion, has the right head coach to make him that better quarterback. And I think that was one thing that lacked with Justin Fields with the current one that they had that, was over with Dallas. But I think Jordan Love's going to be just fine with Green Bay. Green Bay is for real at this point, and late in the season, this is when you want to catch that lightning in a bottle, and I think Green Bay is going to do it. And I can't say it too loud because my wife, of course, Chicago Bears fan, but nonetheless, Caleb Williams to me is doing well. Chicago definitely looks different. It's a shame that he dropped from 1 to 7th. Now they're on the outside looking in. But I think for Chicago, they still have a lot of room for improvement. I believe that Chicago can still go toe to toe for Green Bay if it comes down to it. Either A, for the division, or if coincidentally they would happen to meet each other in the playoffs, which would be obviously extremely hard because one or the other has to get in. But Chicago has been going in the right direction, and it's amazing when you put in the right head coach, the right hire. I know Detroit misses them, but it's a major turnaround for Chicago.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, because I think Ben Johnson, this team is really bought in them, and they're young, so they got some young guys, and they're just out there playing ball, having fun, and they bring in Thuney to clean up that offensive line and some of the other picks they had there. So the offensive line is doing a nice job, and Caleb Williams is not getting sacked like he did last year, where he led the league in sacks. And then he's getting the ball in his weapons' hands. I really like Colin Malonga and um, DeAndre Swift are playing well. Loveland at the tight end position with Komet. So a lot of pieces there for the Bears, and we'll see how they go, and we'll preview their upcoming game. Last game, there's a lot of games, to cover, but this game, I had to talk with you about it. And Rich and I talked a lot about it on Monday. It was Sunday Night Football, and I had to eat the humble pie. I sent out a tweet to Rich and Nate, because they've been telling me forever they're done. Stop picking those damn Chiefs, Dad. Nate says to me, the Chiefs. It's hard to say because I'm a Mahomes guy. It's over, man. The Texans beat them 20-10 in Kansas City, and 6 drop passes for the Chiefs, but the 3 interceptions for Mahomes. He was running for his life out there. I mean, at a certain point, it's 10-10. And Andy Reid on his own 30-yard line goes for it on 4th down. And it's like, what are you doing? So the Chiefs now are 0-4 when Mahomes was their leading rusher. And that just tells you everything. He is trying to do everything. And unfortunately, there's just not enough pieces around him.
There's not. And you look at Andy Reid, unfortunately, Andy Reid is starting to remind us of Andy Reid when the final 3 seasons of the Eagles weren't going his way. And you could see it from the Super Bowl last year and through this season. And Andy Reid's trying to keep a positive momentum. Maybe stop doing State Farm commercials and actually focus upon what you're supposed to be doing, which is being a head coach in the NFL. You know, Patrick Mahomes can only do but so much. He can. And I know his wife is not as much involved like Giselle was with Tom Brady, but there's only so much you can end up doing. Travis Kelce also has to really, really think hard and long. You know what? I'm just not the same guy that I was before, and I really need to step away from this game. You have a couple of rings, walk away, you'll be just fine. I just think Kansas City is definitely cooked for the season. You're not bouncing back from this one. And Andy Reid is just showing who Andy used to be before the fix was in for him to win 3 Super Bowls.
No, the fix was in. Listen to him. He's an Eagles fan, folks, but you know what? The ball was bouncing their way last year, Angel. 11-0 in
It
one-score
was.
games. This year, it's not. And we're going to get to our favorite thing here on Lloyd Vance Insider Football on 129 The Game, Coast Sports Digital Network. All right, game ball winners and lackeys. I'll go lackeys first, and we just talked about mine, and I had to give him Travis Kelsey. You're done. All right, it's over. He's not getting open across the middle of the field. He's the key for everything for that Chiefs team. Rasheed Rice obviously not stepping up. 6 drops total for the team, but Kelsey 1 reception on 5 targets. He knocked that ball up in the air to end the game, and then he got blasted, and he's just laying there. He's like, "Oh God," And I think of the Danny Glover moment. I'm too old for this shit.
Yeah.
So KC 4 of 14 on third downs. I'm giving Travis Kelsey my lackey, and he can take it to everybody else in the locker room.
Yeah, he can. You're absolutely right. That is a great choice for this week because he is. He's just again, it's got nothing to do with Taylor Swift this year. They've really kind of cut that back a lot. And I think she took a step back as well. I know she's been on this podcast with his brother a whole bunch, and she's learning a lot more about football. Maybe we need to put Taylor Swift in his place because it seemed like she's learned a lot more this season than what he has. So yeah, it's time for him to be done.
All right, so that's the lackey. Game ball winner. I gave it to Josh Allen, and I know Nate was excited. He's a Bills guy, and this was a big win for the Bills. Josh Allen put the Superman cape on, 22 of 28, 3 TDs, 9 rushes for 78 yards, 37.84 fantasy points. I mean, in a 39-34 comeback win over Cincinnati. The game was close for a little bit, and then he really just took control of the game. So, uh, do you like that pick, or you having somebody else you think in terms of the game ball?
It's kind of hard because this week, I mean, there was a lot of good ones. No, Josh Allen, is well deserved. If Baker Mayfield could have pulled off the victory, I would go with Baker. But Josh Allen, that game ball winner, because again, Bills need to turn things around really quick to salvage their season because they've also a couple times this season they kind of hit rock bottom a little bit, but they've been able to figure things out and bring it back on the winning side.
Yeah, and some shout outs, honorable mention, Puka Nakua. He had 35.7 fantasy points. I mean, that was a huge win over Arizona, 45-17. And then Jackson Smith and Jig, but he looks like he's back on track, maybe to break Megatron's record. He had 7 catches, 92 yards, 2 TDs in that blowout of the Falcons. So there are some game ball winners and lackeys. Hey, and the Eagles, we broke it all down. We could have easily gave that lackey to Sirianni, Patullo, and don't forget about Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown. So, they get dishonorable mention, but that is your game ball winners and lackeys here on Lloyd Vance Insider Football. Coming down the stretch, I'm here with Angel Martinez. Great night here on the Coast Sports Digital Network. Make sure you check out our programming here and on SR 1029 The Game. Angel, in our last couple minutes, let's look at a couple of these key games for week 15, and you can kind of, we don't have lines here, but the Atlanta Falcons going to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think the Buccaneers really need to get a win at 7-6. Right now they're on a mini losing streak. They may get some players back. I think the Buccaneers win this one.
I hope so because if not, the Bucks are going to just hang up the rest of the season. Just say forget about it. If you get beat by New Orleans and Atlanta in back-to-back weeks, it won't be good for the Bucks.
All right. And the Chargers, they beat the Eagles 9-4. Herbert has a messed up hand. They are at the Chiefs. And even though I said I wouldn't do it, I'm going to say the Chiefs got last stand. Mahomes going to find a way. Derwin James a little banged up. He in the Eagles game. I They got to get that line together for the Chiefs. That was a big problem for Mahomes. I mean, he was harassed early and often, but I think they find a way to beat the Chargers. But if not, it's over. So I'll go Chiefs in this one.
No, I'm going Chargers because the only thing that's left basically for Justin to do is just tie his arm behind his back and just throw it. It was just one handed the entire time because he beat the Eagles with one arm, one hand. And you know what? And his legs. So no, I'm going with the Chargers.
All right. A lot of marquee games, but the last one we'll talk about the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen, he's been playing extremely well, but here are the New England Patriots who already beat them earlier in the season. Buffalo was going to the Patriots, another Stephon Daddy Diggs. Uh, it's a revenge game for him. Been back and forth on this one. I think Buffalo's going to win it though because Stevenson and Henderson can run. They can run the ball, but I think Cook is a titch better than them, so they'll control the game with Cook, and Allen will make some plays. They'll pull one close out against the Patriots.
And now I'll pull this one out for Jerry Rhode Island and for Pete Shepard in the morning. This belongs to the New England Patriots. Mike
Oh man.
Vrabel has Drake May locked in. And at the rate right now, and I know a lot of people said that the Patriots had the weaker schedule. I don't care what kind of schedule you have. It comes to your head coach, your QB, and your entire team. Vrabel has his team locked in. I think they beat the Bills.
All right. And there's week 15. I'll throw a bonus in. I think the Philadelphia Eagles finally get right against the poor Raiders. I think they find a recipe, but the Boo Birds are going to be out. If they go 3-and-out sometime, Angel, the fans are going to be restless at the link. So another great week here on Lloyd Vance Insider Football on 1029 The Game, Coastal Sports Digital Network. Great job, Angel. I really appreciate you filling in for Kevin, who's on assignment this week. And we will talk to everybody later on. Enjoy the games.